Hello, I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy, with another exciting episode of that VidBlaster guy. Sorry we missed you last week. Was under the weather and just was not presentable. But alas, I'm afraid I've recovered fully. So you get to suffer through with me again this week. Exciting topic today, I think. Well, not really exciting at all. We're going to talk about workflow. But it's exciting if you're in the middle of it and everything blows up. But if you have a plan, that won't happen. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Hey, the premise of this show is that one guy with one PC can do one awesome broadcast. And I believe they can do an especially awesome broadcast if they've got the right software. And the software of choice for me is VidBlaster. I'm a VidBlaster reseller, a moderator on the forum, and a VidBlaster advocate. And I'm here today to talk about VidBlaster and all the fun stuff that you can do with it and show you some of the ways that you can keep from getting in trouble with your VidBlaster. But before you do, I wanted to pop up with just a bit of news. Let's see, what have we got here? I don't have my news logo done. Oh, and boy, that was a perfect intro for workflow. But we'll come back to that one in just a minute. Coming out at some point in the near future is VidBlaster version, a minor upgrade, version 3.18. I don't know when, but I've been watching the VidBlaster forum, and in the forum you can find out where those things are. It's forum.vidblaster.com, and that's the official forum for VidBlaster, the users and support forum. And frequently we'll see from the developer, Mike Versteeg, that he has added a new feature, and he'll post a note about that in the forum. But also you'll see a discussion among users about a feature that they might like to see. In fact, there's a whole thread called feature requests, where licensed users can put in a request for a modification to an old feature or even a brand new feature. And sometimes that gets into a discussion, and sometimes it gets into voting, where people say, yeah, +1, I'll take that. And there are 3 or 4 items that have been added to version 3.18, and I thought I'd just list them because if they're the types of things that you're interested in, you want to make sure you take a good close look at that beta when it's released. PowerPoint has got a couple of modifications to it. One that allows I believe it's the switcher to advance the slide, and another mod that allows you to do that with a remote control and have it happen in VidBlaster. So that's going to be pretty cool. Not sure that happens in all editions. It may just be the top 2 edition, Studio and Broadcast. So we'll have to get some more info on that as we get closer to seeing that. The other new feature that I think is going to be really pretty cool, and I bet I'm going to use, is a feature that I think is called vMix. And the vMix feature is sort of a transition, sort of a basic transition feature that transitions from one shot to another shot and allows you to do it at I think at a speed, or I'm not a video guy. I'm trying to explain things that I don't know anything about. But it's as if this shot were to morph into another shot, and that suddenly at some point the shots wouldn't be moving, but they would one would begin to disappear and the other one would kind of come through it. So you could have both of them there at the same time. And I believe that's called a vMix, and you have the ability, I think, to change the percentage of one to the other. So that's going to be pretty fun. One that I'm especially interested in is an addition to the API. Now, the API is the programming language that's built into VidBlaster that allows you to actually program VidBlaster to do certain functions with this punch of a button or with the proper command. This API command has been added to the instant replay that allows you through the API now to set an in point and an out point on your replays. So if you're using a separate controller like the Korg Nano control, and using a MIDI translating software on your PC, you can press a button on your Korg Nano control, and it'll mark an in point for your replay. Press another button, and it marks an out point, so that you can do that a little more conveniently than using a mouse to mark those ins and outs. It also will mean if you are a programmer, if you're writing code and you want to write an application that will use the instant replay, you can pretty well control all of the instant replay functions now outside of VidBlaster, outside of the controls in VidBlaster, by using the language in the API. So that's going to be really fun, and I'm anxious to see what folks do with that, because that, in fact, there are folks I know of right now that are using VidBlaster, but exclusively for its replay function. It's so good and such a great value for the money that it is the basis for a really outstanding replay function. The last update, or the last feature that will be in, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. The last feature that I know about that will be in version 3.18, because 3.18 is not out yet, so other things could be added, is the ability to take the scoreboard and output it to another program, to another PC, to have it go all by itself as a stream somewhere else. So there are lots of folks that I think are going to come up with some really creative ways to use that. And that's one of the beauties of VidBlaster, is that it's modular based, and so you can take those modules as if they were building blocks and put them together in different ways to do different functions. VidBlaster is not so pre-configured that you don't have that flexibility. Now, that's both a strength and a weakness. It's a weakness in the sense that sometimes it can get a little confusing if you've got all these, and in fact, that's a great segue into our main topic today, which is workflow. Now you say, okay, workflow. What in the world is workflow? What has that got to mean? Let me get my chat room back right up here so I don't miss anything. Workflow is basically how you do what you do. What are you doing? What modules are you using? How are you using them? How are you configuring them? And what the final result is the result of your workflow. Now, on this show today, I'm using, I think, about 30 modules. I haven't counted. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. I'm only using 26, sorry. 26 modules today. Or I've got 26 up. I'm not actually using all of those. Some of those are things that I use in some shows and not others. This is the profile that I've set up for that VidBlaster guy's show. And sometimes I'll modify that profile and add a module or take away a module. But here, I've got some player modules. I've got, obviously, I've got some camera modules. I've got the recorder module and several effects modules, some overlay modules. And some of the modules, when we changed from version 2 to version 3, one of the biggest differences that I think was the elimination of the audio module. And it wasn't really eliminated, it was just broken up and put different places. That was one of the things that in fact made VidBlaster version 2 not compatible with Windows 8, is that Windows 8 somehow handled the audio differently, and it was not compatible with the VidBlaster audio module. Well, Mike Versteeg, the developer of VidBlaster, had rewritten so much of VidBlaster for version 3 that he simply included audio into the modules that needed audio. And you say, Tom, why are you spending so much time talking about audio? VidBlaster is a video program. Well, I'll clue you. If we lost audio on this show right now, you wouldn't watch it for very long. You know, I wouldn't watch it for very long. I'd turn it off. I'd say, I don't know what he's saying. I see his lips moving. Sometimes my lips move and you don't know what I'm saying, even if you can hear it. But today, if we lost audio, it would not, you wouldn't get anything out of the program. But if you lost the video, and let's say you lost it for 2 minutes, you could still follow on with the show by hearing the audio. So audio is critical. Audio is critical live, it's critical in the recording, and it's critical in anything that's been pre-recorded that you want to play live during the show. And so that covers the recorder, the streamer, and the player modules. Each one of those 3 modules now has an audio device built into it. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about here. Let me flip over to a screen capture. And this screen capture shows you the recorder module. I don't know if you can see my cursor right here. This module that's got all this mess in it. This is the recorder module. I'm going to right click on the module. It's going to bring up a window. And I guess you can't see it very well. I'm sorry, when I was doing this before, I wasn't recording. But grayed out right here, it says audio device. Now, if it wasn't grayed out, and that is if the recorder were turned off, we could come out and have a drop-down list here of all the different audio devices that were available to be included as the audio in the recording. In fact, let's take a look at a different feed here, and let's take a look down here into, this is the Windows, where did it pop up there? Let's drag it back over here. This is Windows audio. Now, playback is essentially our speakers. Recording is our microphones. And in this case, it's also our mixer. I don't know if you can see here, I think it's probably large enough. You can see 2 of these listings have activity over here in the volume meter on the right side. And they're listed as line in, number 4, Behringer USB WDM audio 2.8.40, ready. And then underneath it is the next one that's line in 6, Behringer blah, 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 blah. Well, I just happen to know that each one of these is part of my audio setup for my PC. Behringer 6 is a USB connection to my X1204 USB mixer. And Behringer 4 is the Behringer UCA 202 sound card that I use for Skype and for audio that is other than Skype and the mixer. So I want to make sure, for example, since line in 6 Behringer is my mixer, that when I set up, and let me pop back over to this other screen cap for a second, and when I pop back into my recorder and I'm selecting my audio device, that I'm selecting the audio device that carries the entire mix of my show. Now, if you don't want to record the entire mix of the show, then you don't have to. You can record just one microphone if that's an option. You can record just the Skype audio if you wanted to. If you've got the broadcast version and have the ability to have multiple recorders, you can record all sorts of different ways if you want to record piece parts of your broadcast. But for my purposes, in the recorder, I want to get the main mix that's coming from my mixer. And that's going to include this mic that I'm using, the overhead mic. It's going to include the audio from Skype. It's going to include the audio from cell phone calls. And it's going to include the audio that VidBlaster produces itself through the players. So when we played the promo here at the beginning of the show, that audio is controlled by one of the sliders on my soundboard, on my Behringer mixer. The reason I'm the reason I'm spending so much time on this is because I just recently screwed this up. I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Did an entire broadcast streamed an entire broadcast using the wrong microphone device. Instead of using the line-in 6 on the Behringer, I think I ended up using the microphone HD Pro Webcam 920. So all the folks that were watching the show live heard this tinny microphone sound because the streamer's audio selection was set to the webcam's mic by accident. Now, by accident, I say it was one of those days. And write this down. If you're taking notes, write this down as note number 1. On the day you do a show, don't add any new hardware. Don't add any new software. Don't download any updates from Windows. Don't make any changes to your PC because you don't know what's going to happen. And you say, oh, well, but I'm just going to plug in this USB thingy. I was testing a USB 3.0 capture device. It was supposed to basically allow me to capture 6 standard definition videos through one plug in the USB 3.0. And I was excited, and it was show day, and I was going to show it off on the show. And I thought, oh, this is great, no problem. I'll just plug it in, and away we go. Well, I plugged it in, and not only did we not go away, not only did it not work, but when I installed the drivers, it made all sorts of things go hay-wacky. That's a new word, hay-wacky. You heard it here on that VidBlaster guy. And my Windows got corrupted, and no program would run. Fortunately, my good friend Amnon Nissan with Nissan Communications was able to give me an amazing fix, which I think he probably just Googled, but that's okay. It worked, and the proof is in the pudding, and was able to get me back up to speed. But in the process of doing that, my audio devices somehow changed around a little bit. And so in VidBlaster, instead of having the streamer set for line-in 6 Behringer, the streamer got set for microphone HD Pro Webcam C920. So I was streaming out a different audio device than what I intended to stream out. The long story of this whole workflow discussion is it's not just enough to get your workflow set for today and know that it will always be the same. It will never change. It's a matter of getting your workflow set for today, getting your checklist organized so that prior to each show, prior to each broadcast, whether it's sports or church or talk show or events or whatever it might be, prior to, you want to go through that checklist. And for me, the checklist is, number 1, what is my recorder set to record audio from? And in this case, it's my Behringer 6. Or excuse me, it's identified. Let me pop this back up again. There it is. Oh, you've been watching it the whole time. It's my Behringer line-in 6. Now, if it's helpful to me, I can, let's see, we're going to select this. I'm going to click Properties, and let me drag that Properties window in here so that you can see it. And I can change line-in, and I'm going to just change that to main mix from the X1204 USB. So that, and boy, if I could spell, I would be dangerous. Let's see, there we go. And I would change the icon to a mixer icon, but I don't have a mixer icon, so we're going to leave it like that. We'll apply and say OK. And we can see now here it's very clear in the sound, or excuse me, the recording tab of the audio devices in Windows, that number 6 Behringer USB and the rest of that junk is the main mix from my X1204 USB. Now, the number 4 Behringer right here is my Behringer UCA202. So let's go ahead and change that. And this is going to be, we'll just call it the Skype. No, we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it a USB input from Behringer from the UCA202. And again, let's see if we can't spell correctly. Oh, I didn't drag that window over so you can't see that I did it wrong, but let me drag that over so you can see it. There we go. So it's USB input from UCA202. We're going to leave the icon the same because we don't have a good icon. We'll apply that. And now here in my Windows, I've modified it so that it's a little more helpful for me to select. Now I do have some other things. In fact, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got all these audio devices here in the recording part. And what I really want to do is, I don't know that I want to disable that one, but let's see. Let's go down to the microphone for the webcam. That's disabled. And you see here, it says Show Disabled Devices. Well, I'm going to uncheck that, and that's going to take that off the list. Here's a Wirecast virtual microphone driver. I'm not going to use that, so we're going to disable that, and that's gone off the list. HDMI in, I'm not going to use that. We're going to take that off the list. HDMI in again. Whoops. There we go. And we're going to disable it. And another HDMI in, we're going to disable it. And a line in, we're going to disable it. And another line in, we're going to disable it. So now all I've got left is my two Behringers and my stereo mix, which I'm not sure enough to disable that, so we're going to leave that go. So these are all the inputs into VidBlaster. Now it gets a little tricky when you start talking about playback, because here you can see I've got two things that are labeled speakers 4 Behringer and speakers 6 Behringer. And this is basically where the PC is outputting audio to these devices. So it's outputting to my mixer and outputting to my Behringer USB sound card. And in another case, I've got speakers that are outputting through the audio control, through the audio out, the speaker jack on the PC. And all three of these are going into my mixer. So we're not going to play with those today, but know that those are there. That's on the playback tab. But on the recording tab, we now have just got three choices. So let's OK that one. And let's, for example, let's see, what have we got here? Let's go back to this tab for just a second. And this is a player that I'm not using, so we'll just drag this up here. And we'll right click. And we can set the audio device here. And now in the player, this is the playback that we saw in the audio device for Windows just a second ago. I've got the Behringer 4, which is my sound card, selected. I could also choose the Behringer 6, which is my mixer, but I'm choosing the Behringer 4 right here, the sound card, because that is an input into channel 1 on my mixer, which means I can control the output from this player on my mixer. And I know I've gone kind of way off the subject here, but it's probably a good rabbit trail to go down for a second. But I also, as part of my workflow, I have to make sure that my audio device is set where I want it. If it's not set for speakers 4 Behringer, and by the way, it's not going to say speakers 4 Behringer on your PC. You'll have to discover exactly what the nomenclature is there for yours. But for me, it's speakers 4 Behringer. If it's not set for this, I'm not going to be able to control it from my mixer like I want to. All right, so let's get out of this for just a second. We'll come over here to the streamer. Let me drag in a streamer module here for a second. We'll just put it on top of that one. And I'm not using this streamer for the moment. Audio device allows me to select which audio device I want to use, and for some reason it's showing some that I've disabled, but it does show, oh, I bet because I have to restart VidBlaster in order for it to pick up on the fact that I've disabled these and renamed them. Well, that's good to know. Line in 6 would be what I would use, so I would select that one. We'll go back to audio device and make sure it's selected. Yeah, there's the dot at the beginning. To say that when I stream, I'm going to stream the main mix from my Behringer. That's what I want to stream. Don't want to stream the stereo mix or something from the X1204XE card. Now, this has the same 1204 number as my mixer, but don't be confused by that. This is actually a Magewell 6-port capture card, 4-port standard definition, 2 ports high definition. That also includes audio input. So for my streamer here, I'm going to set audio. Now also for my streamer, I'm also going to set the, where is it, right here? I need to set, well, the streamer is going to automatically stream the program module. That's right. So we don't have to set a video output, or excuse me, a video device. In the recorder, I right-click the recorder, you can see right here, we've got source, and again, that would drop down a menu if we weren't already using it. And it would basically allow us to record any of the sources, any of the modules on here that has the ability to be recorded, which would include virtually all of them, cameras, effects, players, all of those could be recorded. The video from those can be recorded and mixed with any audio device to make a recording in VidBlaster. So you've got a lot of flexibility there. But for the purposes of this discussion in terms of workflow, the idea is, let me drag the streamer down here so we've got all 3 of those, so that we've got the recorder, the player, and the streamer, that all 3 have audio devices that must be assigned to them in order for them to perform the way you want them to. The player has, obviously it's playing a video, so there's no question about that. The streamer is going to automatically record the video from the program module, which now is renamed the monitor module. And then the recorder, you're going to have to set not just audio, but also the video device that you want to record. That should be part of every week's or every show or every event's workflow, so that you're double checking those. You remember there was a Microsoft update that came out, what is probably 2 or 3 months ago now, that all of a sudden standard definition cameras didn't work with lots of software. VidBlaster was included on that list. There was Adobe software that wasn't picking up standard definition cameras anymore, and it took 24, 48 hours for folks to pick out the fact that it was a specific Windows update that was just bad, had a bad part to it, had an unintended consequence. And if you went in and uninstalled that update, then you got your standard definition cameras back. So that's a good reason to not do updates. I'm not suggesting that you never do updates, but you wouldn't do updates the day of a show. You would do updates on a day when you knew you would have time to test and make sure those updates hadn't affected anything. Same goes for installing softwares. Same goes for installing new drivers. Virus protection, forget it. We're not putting virus protection on there. If there's a program like Skype that wants to update itself, don't let it update itself. Make sure that, that you choose when it gets to be updated, because if it's playing around with your PC, if it's changing drivers or making modifications to the registry or whatever it's doing, it can have an unintended effect that you will discover in the middle of a broadcast, or maybe 5 minutes before a broadcast, or maybe not until later, like me, where you realize you've streamed using the wrong audio device. Everything worked, and it worked the way it looked like it was supposed to work, except it wasn't the intended method. The best way to make sure that you achieve the results that you want to achieve is to have a checklist that is a thorough checklist that you go through before every broadcast to double check that you've got your correct audio devices set, correct video devices set, And that in order to ensure that you don't have any surprises, that you don't allow anything to update itself, and that you haven't made any updates or changes to the hardware or the software, especially the day of the show. Now, I'm not saying don't ever test anything, because testing is how we learn. Testing is how we figure out what works and what doesn't work, or what works well and then what works even better. That's always fun, to find something that works even better than the way we used to do it. It's more efficient, or it's easier, or it's faster, or it's cleaner, or it's more colorful, whatever the case may be. That's what testing will give us, and certainly you want to do that. But unlike me, who, I'm the one that's out there supposed to make all the mistakes so that you can learn from my mistakes and not have to make them yourself. I'm going to be installing the software the day of the show, I promise. Same with hardware. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm out there to figure out what works and what doesn't work, but also to sort of lift the veil so that you can see what the consequences are, both good and bad. If there's new hot software or new super piece of hardware that we want to test and see how well it does, when it does well, I'm going to be right there at the forefront saying, hey, this is doing great. Come take a look. But if it does poorly, I want to give you that same impression to say, whoops, hold on a second. Before you just march out and start doing this one without thinking it through, without testing, here's what's happening to me. This bombed out. This didn't work. And for those of you that follow this show, you know that there's sometimes this show has started late, or started an hour late, or in some cases skipped a whole week because we tried something we shouldn't have tried, and it fouled up. But this is kind of, internet broadcasting reality show, I guess you could call it. So if it's real, you're going to see it here, and the effects will be, I think, true. The idea is that there are no surprises. That you get to watch the surprises here and kind of chuckle at that stupid Tom Sinclair. Doesn't he know any better not to do that? But no, I do know better to do that, but I want to show you, and we can learn together what happens when we do these kinds of things. As of today, I think I've got my PC pretty rock solid, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens as version 3.18 comes out, and hopefully not far behind that will be, although I was going to say that at some point we're looking for the return of the playlist in VidBlaster as the playout module. And I caught some rumblings, and just kind of some preliminary rumblings in the last week or two in the forum regarding the player module. And of course, the player module is the one that's been completely rewritten and has basically made the old playlist module, incompatible. So a new playlist or playout module will have to be written to go with the new player module. And I think they're getting the player module just about the way they want it. So that means that work can be begun. And this is just me talking now. This is not something that's coming from VidBlaster. This is just my guess, trying to read between the lines. But that a playout module may be one of the next things on the drawing boards that's going to get worked on and added to version 3. And that'll, for some folks, including me, I think that'll kind of round out the full function of version 3. And I love version 3. Fortunately, I don't need to use a playlist module, because all the screw-ups you see here are not in a playlist. These are live for sure. So that's the feature part today. Workflow, start with your checklist. Get your checklist going so that you don't make mistakes. Especially if, it's one thing where it's a show that you're doing for fun, it's a hobby, and advertisers aren't counting on you being on the air for a particular time, or at a particular time for a particular length of time to show off their product or their commercial. But if you're getting paid, you definitely want to make sure it works right the first time, every time. You want to be a professional about it and be practiced and not have any last-minute mistakes. And, it's always interesting to read in Streaming Media Magazine or some of the other journals some of the problems that people have had when they get to a venue where they've done all their site work, and then they come and find out that the internet connection doesn't work the way they expected it to when suddenly there are 10,000 people in the building, or when there's a power problem that they didn't anticipate. Those kinds of things are always interesting and can be fun to watch somebody else struggle with them. Let's put it that way. So that finishes up the feature section. If you're watching live, you notice that we are using a new chat. The chat is something that that our good friend Kent from Ohio showed off the other day on his show, and you can see all the shows that we know about that use VidBlaster on our website, thatvidblasterguide.com. Under links, you can go see and go watch some other folks' shows, both live and recorded. But Kent was using a new chat from an outfit called Chatwing, ChatWing, chatwing.com. And we've got that forum going up right now. I'm looking over at it, and I can see we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Looks like 9 folks in chat right now. One of the things I've noticed about this chat is that sometimes the list of users is accurate and sometimes it's not. Sometimes there could be twice as many people in there and it just hasn't caught up with it yet. But I can see a lot of familiar names. Good to see those folks here in the chat room. I invite you, those of you that are watching live, to hang around for the after show. That'll be fun. But Chatwing, one of the reasons why we looked around for another chat is because we were suffering with occasional visitors that didn't have good manners. And sometimes people have to be shown the door, and with the other chat, there was not a way to show them the door, at least not that I could figure out. But this one allows us to do that. So if there are people that are not behaving, I see somebody in the chat room has made a comment that I might find a little questionable that was part of the workflow discussion. It says, maybe we should make t-shirts saying, "Don't be a Tom." Well, that might get you banned there, Timothy. No, I'm just teasing. We wouldn't do that. I think that's good criticism and tongue-in-cheek. But that was one of the things that we were trying to fix with the chat, and have found Chatwing to be pretty neat. We can change the font size. We can change the background color. There are some things, if we decide to really go with Chatwing, we can pull out some of the commercial involvement. I mean, some of the commercial parts that they have in there, if we become a paid client. And I'm taking a good long look at that. Chatwing.com looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So my hat tip to Kent for passing that along to us. Another little side note here is coming up in November. We've got our VidBlaster giveaway contest. We're giving away a free copy of VidBlaster every week on every show. Let me rephrase that. Every show in November. So you'll want to go to our website, thatvidblasterguide.com, to see all the rules. Basically, we're asking you to create a show. It doesn't have to be a long show. It doesn't have to be fancy, but sort of a prototype, something that you might use VidBlaster for. Record it with VidBlaster, submit it, let us take a look at it, and every week we'll be giving away a $195 home edition of VidBlaster. And if you've already owned VidBlaster and you want to enter the contest, you can do that too, and we'll just give you a credit towards a future purchase, either an edition or a version upgrade. So that'll be a lot of fun. If you've got any questions, you can pop me an email, tom@thatvidblasterguide.com, and I'll be happy to reply. In fact, if you've got a question about VidBlaster, how it works, or how you can get something to work, pop me an email. I'd be happy to give you some help with that as well. So that's the contest coming up in November, and we hope you will take a hard look at joining us for that. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we haven't confirmed them yet, but I've got a couple of guests that I'm trying to pin down to get on the show. One who is in the music business and is using VidBlaster to live stream concerts and music events from various music venues in his city. and has done some interesting things where he actually automates the functions of VidBlaster so that it runs itself. And it allows folks at home to see what's going on in their favorite music venue. Do they want to, is this a band that they're interested in? And can they hop on a bus or the subway and pop on over there and catch the rest of the show or enjoy it from home? And one of the uses that it makes in VidBlaster, if you have the studio or the broadcast version, or maybe the pro version too, I'll have to check. Anyway, if you've got the switcher available to you, and I know that's studio and broadcast for sure, it might be in the pro, but you can set the switcher to automatically switch whatever inputs or video devices you want every second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever you determine. And so for a music venue where, say, you've got 3 or 4 cameras connected, you can have those cameras on a cycle where they'll cycle through and show, 5 seconds of a close-up shot, and then 5 seconds of a different shot. And that's pretty cool. It's not quite the same as if you had a live operator operating it, but if you're in the business of doing this, you could do multiple music venues with the same concept without having to physically be present. So we're hoping we can get him on the show here pretty soon. Also hoping that we can get an update. You remember a while back we did a show with Zach down in Tampa, who is using 24 cameras in VidBlaster. And so we want to get an update from Zach on how that project's coming. Basically, it was a reality TV show pilot that he was making, that he was doing live over a course of a weekend. And we want to try to pin him down for a date on that one as well. And then I've also had some folks approach me about being an occasional co-host. So we'll continue those discussions if you're interested in being a perhaps not weekly, but occasional co-host here on that VidBlaster Guy. Would definitely entertain that and love the input. Let's see if I've missed anything in chat when I was looking on that. Some of the comments in chat. I will say that today we are streaming three different feeds to 3 different locations. We've got our main feed going to Decast, and then we're also going to the Decast iOS, which still testing whether I want to use that long term for my main feed. We'll just have to see. And then the third one is this is going to YouTube Live, and that's the first time we've done this on this show, trying to test whether the YouTube Live recorded version of this show is as good as the video files that we upload after the show to YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, it will be interesting. In fact, I'll probably go ahead and have this live one recorded as one YouTube option, and then go ahead and upload the recording that I'm making here locally as a second option, so that we can kind of compare them and see, is the lip sync right? Is the video quality as good? Are there any anomalies in it that make one less desirable to the other? And if it turns out that they're pretty well equal, this will be a great savings of time in my workflow, because post-show I'll spend some time uploading this to YouTube. And of course, you still have to write all the descriptions and the tags and those kinds of things. But it will definitely streamline the process. Now, if you're interested in doing the YouTube Live, I think at this point, YouTube still requires that you have 100 subscribers. And for those of you that have subscribed to our channel, I really do appreciate it, because it got us over that 100 mark pretty easily, and I appreciate that. And if you're not a subscriber, we'd love to have you subscribe, and you'll just get a note in your YouTube account that we've uploaded a video. Sometimes it's every week, sometimes it's more than that if we're uploading some tutorials. So they'll pop in there too. We would invite you to subscribe to us on YouTube and to join our our Twitter page. It's at VidBlaster Guy. So that's a little bit of housekeeping there. Believe it or not, folks, I think we've blown through an hour's worth of material in 45 minutes. So let's go to our friends in the chat room and see if... okay, here's some notes in the chat room. It says, YouTube Live just says starting soon, Tom. Well, that's interesting. So maybe, I guess, this week it's not going to be as great as we hoped it would be. We have... Did we forget to press the button? Let's see now. For me, it still says, please stand by, starting soon. How about that? Good thing we weren't using that for our main broadcast feed. So it still says, please stand by, starting soon. How about that? So much for YouTube Live. It's a learning curve. And it says you're live. But it's not telling me the truth. Oh, there it goes. Looks like it's going live now. Okay. Well, if you're just watching us on YouTube, then you'll catch the last few minutes of the show. And obviously, this is not going to be fit for a long-term broadcast, but we'll leave it up for a day or two for comparison if you are interested in comparing. Let's take a look back in the chat here and see what else I might have missed. Some questions there. YouTube is live. Okay. And I've got a question from Bob that says, this may be a long subject, what levels do you set? 75%, 100% for PC output and other sound devices? Bob, that's a great question. Let's go back to my screen capture. And we will go down here to speakers in the sys tray, and you can see it says speakers 100%. And if I left click this, that will bring up, let's drag it over here if it'll drag. Oh, it's not going to drag. Oh well. Anyway, if I could drag it over, but I can't. Excuse me, as you left click on this speaker icon, it basically brings up a mixer, in this case a one-channel mixer, and it's maxed out at 100%. Let's see, if I right-click, let's see what my volume control option is. No, that's not what I wanted. Right-click, open volume mixer, there we go. Let's drag that over where we can see and get that out of the way. You can see basically that everything is maxed out 100% on speakers, system sounds, TV, TVB, guys show, encode and stream. That's in Wirecast. CPU usage, that's basically the feed that VidBlaster is getting. All of those are at 100%. So I'm basically telling Windows to whatever you hear, whatever you're hearing, wherever you're hearing it, from whatever source that you're hearing it, output it at the 100% of the level that you're hearing it at. And I'm not saying amplify it. I'm saying simply output it at the level that you're hearing it at. Output it at 100%. Now, if I were listening to this show and I were watching myself on the screen and I were listening to it, I would select the speaker icon, and I would probably cut it back to about 50% because it probably would be blaring. But from a recording and broadcasting standpoint, we want Windows to pass the audio through at the same level that it hears it. So when Windows hears the audio, don't drop the sound below 100%, and we don't have an option to go above 100%. So pass the sound through on a kind of a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of volume. Don't diminish it, and it can't increase it. And the 100% does not at least in my experience, doesn't introduce any distortion. Now, it's certainly possible that whatever your source is for that audio could be already distorted. And so if you had Windows sending it through at 100%, you would pick up that distortion. For example, if you're whatever mic you had, you didn't set the gain on it properly and it were clipping because it was set too high, that process, whatever it was, garbage in, garbage out, that garbage would get passed through Windows at 100%. But Windows should not introduce any distortion. Now, occasionally, depending on the sound cards, in the past, I've gotten a little bit of a hum. Sometimes that's what they call a ground loop, which can be cured by a ground loop isolator or a ground loop preventer, and it depends on what kind of wiring you're working with, whether it's a 1/4 inch XLR, 1/8 inch USB, RCA. There are lots of different devices out there that allow you to pinpoint what that is, not to pinpoint what it is, but to fix it. And the easiest way to pinpoint it is to simply unplug something. And if it goes away, that's it. And if it doesn't, plug it back in, go to the next thing, unplug it. And then if it goes away, that was this one, not that one. And then you can figure out what to fix. Sometimes, too, I had a onboard sound on a motherboard that in the onboard audio on that motherboard, there was a little whistle. And the only way I could get rid of that was to swap out the motherboard. But it was a matter of process of elimination to find out where that was coming from. And in this particular case, I had the ability on my mixer to control the volumes, the volumes of the different devices separately, so it was easy to figure out where the problem was coming from. And in this case, it was coming from the speaker output on the back of the PC that was being used as an input to the mixer. And there was a problem with that. Swapped the motherboard for another purpose, actually, but that fixed that as part of that process. So, Bob, really good question. Really good question. And I'll tell you, it took me the longest time of process of elimination to really learn that, that Windows has to be set for 100%. And I can remember some of my early shows, constant feedback of people saying, oh, you're so soft. Your audio's not very loud. And I had the mixer cranked up and I had all these things cranked up. And it was really as simple as the Windows audio device being 100%. Let's go back to this and see if I can show you one of the things that I did stumble over. We're going to go Windows, we're going to go Playback Devices, and let me find that and drag that over here where we can see it right there. Get that out of the way. And we're going to use the Speakers 6. So this is my Behringer mixer, and I'm going to right-click that. I'm going to go to Properties, and let me drag that Properties window back in here. Let's see, let me get the whole thing in there so we can see it. There we go. And then the tabs, the second tab here is something called Levels. And you can see here the volume control is set at 100%. And this is on the Behringer 6, which is going to be the audio that goes out to my Behringer 6 from the VidBlaster. It says no jack information because really it's going out USB. So let's say OK on that one. We'll go to the speakers for Behringer, which is my Behringer USB sound card. We'll go to Properties. Let me drag that one in so we can see it. There we go. Go to Levels. You can see that one's at 100%. As we go over to the recording side, and we'll go into the main mix from the Behringer, we'll go to Properties and drag that window back over where we can see it. Go to Levels. Let me see. Oh, I've got that level at 74%. Huh. Wonder why I've got that at 74%. That used to be at 100. So maybe this ought to be part of my workflow now to go in and check it. I'm not going to move it right now because I don't want to blow you guys out or create another problem, but I'm sure going to test this right after the show. Let's check and see what the other one is set for. And we'll drag that window back in. Go to levels. That one's set at 100%. So maybe I've got a little low volume here on my mixer that I didn't know about. Maybe that was left over from my terrible experience a couple of weeks ago. Okay, that was a great question. And let's see if we've got any follow-ups to that. And fortunately, we've got Martin K. in the chat room who is straightening out all my mistakes there. That's good. Let's pop back a little bit further in chat and see if there's some other questions that popped up. Okay, Kent makes the good comment, make sure you get all your videos and images loaded ahead of time. That's a good point, Kent. That would be part of the workflow, is to load up all those videos so that you don't have to do that during a show. I know there have been some cases where people have loaded a video or loaded an audio file, and then things have locked up for them at that point. So it's definitely prudent to get that done in advance. Let's see, it's good to have Braden back with us. And checking for questions here that may have popped up. And looks like folks were saying in the chat room early on, boy, I should have been monitoring this better, that it was not, YouTube was not picking up on what we needed. There was a good question in the pre-show that Kent had about needing more screen real estate. And he was interested in an additional monitor so that he could get basically more space to have things. I know Kent does will bring in guests by Skype, and so he's doing a screen capture on the same monitor that he's also using to control the show with VidBlaster. And so adding a second monitor is a great way to do that. And you can also, if you're cramped for space, you can also basically get a larger monitor with a higher resolution, so that that VidBlaster itself would need a smaller percentage of the screen, so you could have a larger percentage of the screen at a higher resolution available for a Skype capture. So that's another way to handle that. Let's see, any other questions there? All right, good questions and good comments. Really appreciate the feedback. And you know, I really do feel a partnership with folks that are able to come and watch live and correct me. I think there's some people that enjoy that, perhaps a little too much, but that's okay. That's okay. I certainly need all the correction I can get. Next week, on a personal note, and this has to do with next week. Next week, the show would be on November 6th, and I'm hoping that will be the case. I do have a grandbaby due. This will be grandbaby number 2 in the Sinclair clan. Actually, it will be the 11th boy in a row, starting with my dad and me and my 3 brothers, and my brothers and my 5 sons, and now 2 grandsons on my part. So there are 11 boys in a row, no girls. The only way we get girls is to marry them, which is good because then we get who we want. But that grandbaby may be born next week, not sure. And if that's the case, that we will probably not be doing a show. So if that's the case, we'll have to give away 2 packages of VidBlaster the next week. And if by some chance we end up doing a show at an earlier day or time, or a later day and time, I'll make sure I put that on the website, thatvidblasterguy.com. And of course, if you follow us on Twitter, we'll keep you up to date on all that kind of stuff on Twitter, @VidBlasterGuy. I hope you'll stick around for the post-show, the after show. I've got something that I want to bounce off some of you that have good ability to say, no, Tom, that's a stupid idea. Maybe not. Anyway, I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy. It's been a treat to be with you today. I look forward to seeing you again on another day live. Would love to have you go back and watch all of our videos on YouTube. In fact, go back and watch the first couple of ones. They were so bad. And you say, okay, well, golly, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough to do a show. Go back and watch some of those first shows that I did, and you'll feel much better about the shows that you're thinking about doing. You'll say, that guy was so bad, I can do better than that. And then you say, oh, he came out pretty well after only a year of trying. Okay, enough of that. It's a treat to be with you. I look forward to being with you again, and take care.